Hello everyone, welcome back once again, and this is your Sujit sir. In the previous few classes, we have gone through a number of methods that we find in voice change. In today's class, we shall come to know how the voice change takes place in case of quasi-passive. Let us therefore move ahead. My dear students, we have to understand first what we exactly mean by quasi-passive. Let us see. Quasi-passive verbs are active in form but passive in sense. So students, in such sentences, the verbs seem to be in the active form, but the sense that it makes is passive. We can also say that the construction in such a sentence has almost the same function both in active and in passive. Now students, this particular method or the structure of the sentence is a bit confusing. We can understand more about it if we go through some examples. Let us therefore see some examples. Now look at these examples. The first one, the book reads funny. Now students, it arises a kind of curiosity that how can a book read? But here in this sentence, it says that the book reads. What do we often say, students? We may say he reads or she reads because he or she referred to some persons who are able to read books. Now if it is said the book itself reads, it sounds or appears somewhat strange. But the sentences in quasi-passive structure are always found to be like this. Here we need to understand in our own way what the sentence actually wants to mean. So here in the first example, it is very clear to us that the sentence wants to mean that the content of the book is very funny when we go through it. Look at the second example. The drum is beating. Now what exactly takes place in reality? There is always some person who beats the drum. But in this sentence, it is clearly said that the drum itself is beating. Now a question arises in our mind. What is that? How can a drum itself beat? No, it cannot be anything like this. So here we need to understand that the sentence wants to mean that there must be someone who is beating the drum. But students, notice the structure. This is the structure in quasi-passive form. Now students, here we need to remember that questions in quasi-passive form are asked only in two tenses. One is simple present tense and the second one is present continuous tense. So questions or sentences in quasi-passive form will not be found in any other tense than simple present tense and present continuous tense. Now here we have two different rules for these two tenses. There is a particular rule for transforming a sentence in simple present tense and a separate rule for present continuous tense. Let us now see the examples for both the tenses. Look at the first example in simple present tense. The question in the active voice is rice sells cheap. Once again, a question arises in our mind. How can rice itself sell something? So it seems to be impossible. But here, as I have said to you earlier, we have to make out a meaning of the sentence by our own. So here we come to understand that the price of rice has been down or that The sailors are selling rice at a cheap price. Let us now see how such a sentence in quasi-passive form is transformed into passive. Now the rule is really very easy. Look at how it has been converted. The verb in the question is replaced with either is or are according to the subject. Now here we have the subject rice, which is of course a singular subject. Therefore, there is no question of using are. It will certainly be is. So in the question, it is rice sells cheap. In the passive voice, we have to begin like this. Rice is cheap. Once again, students, look at what we have done. We have replaced the main verb, which is sells, with the be verb is, and the rest is almost the same. Thereafter, we have to add an adverbial clause, and it will always begin with when. So we have put when. Thereafter, it will either be it is or they are. When should we use they are? If the subject is plural. Now the subject is singular. We have used when it is. And finally will come the past participle form of the verb given in the active voice. Now what is it? It is sells. And we all know the past participle form or the third form of the verb sell is sold. The three forms are sell, sold, sold. So there we have used the third form of the verb or the past participle form of the verb. This way we do. It is not at all difficult. As you can see, the first part is copied and only the main verb is replaced with either is or are according to the subject, and thereafter an adverb clause will be added and it will always be with when. And if you have used is previously, there it will be it is, and if you have used are here, there it will be they are. So in this way we transform a sentence in the active voice into passive voice in case of quasi-passive form. Now here we have discussed how a sentence in the simple present tense is transformed into passive. Now we shall see how a sentence in present continuous tense is transformed into passive in case of quasi-passive form. And students, you always have to keep this in mind that the questions in quasi-passive form are asked only in two tenses. The simple present tense, which we have already understood, and another tense is the present continuous tense. Sentences in quasi-passive form are never asked in any other tense. Therefore, let us now see how a sentence in present continuous tense in case of quasi-passive form is transformed into passive voice. Look at the sentence. The book is selling well. Once again, it seems to be strange enough because we all know that a book is an object. It is unable to sell anything. So the meaning which we have to make out from here is that the book is in high demand and booksellers are selling this particular book in plenty. Now this method seems to be easier than the previous one. In the previous one, that is in case of simple present tense, we know we have to add an adverb clause and then we can convert it into passive voice. But here the formula is different. What is it? Now in the question we can see the book is selling well. So up to the portion the book is will be taken to passive without any change. And thereafter the ing form of the verb which is given in the question, that is selling, will be replaced with being followed by the third form of the verb, that is sold. So selling will become being sold, and the remaining part of the sentence will be unaltered. So here we have come to understand the two different methods used in case of quasi-passive form, and I am sure from now onwards, whenever you deal with sentences in quasi-passive, you will never do any mistake. Well, we have not yet completed all the methods. We still have one or two which we shall discuss in our next classes. Thank you so much.